Chapter 24. Adina's black dress felt like it had been created for this moment. The play of chiffon against skin, the contrast of black fabric on white shoulders, and the cascading sheerness wrapped around her all felt so perfect. She was one with it. Adina studied her reflection in the mirror with a mixture of happiness and regret, an unsettling feeling of complete calm and absolute terror. She never imagined that the first time she performed with the National Arts Center Symphony Orchestra, they would be playing her music. Or would it forever be known as Friedrich Lang's? Since she had lost access to the Duncan Cello nearly 3 weeks ago, though she struggled against it, she had begun to accept the inevitable. The music she first scribbled out as a teenager, the same 8 bars Catherine Carnegie used as a starting point for her symphonic tour de force, and that Adina raised to perfection with her lyrics, was gone. She might realize her lifelong ambition to become a professional cellist, but Lang would have her music. She took a deep breath. The dress stared back at her from the mirror. Let it go, Adina. That's what her mother kept telling her. Maybe she was right. The doorbell rang, and Philip stood posed before her in a crisp tuxedo, holding a sprawling bouquet of red roses. "You made it!" she exclaimed. "I wouldn't miss it for all the prime ministers and presidents in the universe." Philip laughed. He handed her the flowers and cast an appreciative eye over her and the dress. "Oh la la!" They embraced, and he held her close. It was good to be wrapped in his arms again. He kissed her cheek, and then slowly released her with a whisper. "I missed you." "Me too. I'm glad you're back." They enjoyed a moment of silence before he spoke. "Are you ready? I thought this night would never come. Here you are, about to play at the NAC." Philip said, smiling, "I'm so happy for you." "Thanks. I'm sorry I've been such a burden to you," she replied, looking down at her feet. "And to everybody else, too." "Nonsense." He took her hand and raised her face up before the full-length mirror. "Look at yourself. You've made it through all the crap anyone could throw at you. You're about to step into a whole new world, onto the stage, in front of thousands of people. It's where you belong. You've earned it." He paused a moment. "And on top of all that, you're not hard on the eyes." She smiled at her reflection and his glowing assessment. "And after the performance," Philip continued, "I've got reservations at Chez Henri to celebrate." "Thanks." She should only feel happiness, but a voice inside her wanted more. She chose her words carefully. "I guess, then, you didn't get anywhere with Lang." "Lang?" Philip repeated. He seemed to deflate a little. "You mean about the score?" "Yeah, I thought maybe you—" She stopped. He'd already done so much. "I tried. Got my editor interested in the story, but there's no way to prove Lang did anything." He turned her around so he could talk to her face to face. "He even copyrighted it with the Library of Congress and the Songwriters Guild." Adina bit her lip and felt wetness cloud her eyes. She didn't want to spoil the evening, but to let go of her creation and lose the music forever meant that somehow she was letting Catherine and James down, and Margaret Rose, and herself. She knew that Philip could see the change in her face. He took her in his arms again. "That music was never published before. There is no record of it other than those copies you made. Unsigned photocopies, unfortunately, don't prove a hell of a lot." Adina nodded. "He's right. Maybe it's better this way." The Duncan cello was gone. The music was gone. Catherine and James were dead. It was time to find her own dream. William stood beside Jackie, who held a bouquet of carnations and a smile that he hadn't seen in a long time. He knocked on the door of Adina's condo. "She did it," he grinned. "Finally." The door opened and Adina greeted them with a radiance that seemed to light her from within. It reminded William of the little girl who used to take such delight in going to see the symphony with them. She would get all dressed up and just glow for the entire evening, basking in the experience, completely mesmerized by the performances. "Thank you," Adina said before she gave both of them an extra long hug. "Come on in." They stepped inside the foyer, and Philip insisted on taking their coats. He looked at his watch.
"Come, sit down. We've got lots of time."
Jackie sat beside Adina. "You look beautiful, ma belle." She opened her silver clutch and reached in. "I thought you might want to wear this tonight," she said, opening her hand to reveal a delicate gold cello brooch. Adina took the tiny piece of jewelry. "I forgot all about this," she said, studying it closely.
"Remember the last time you wore it?"
Jackie said.
"We thought it might bring you luck. Again."
"Like my audition for Canterbury," Adina mused. "Philip, I wore this in grade 8 when I got accepted at the High School for the Arts. My grandmother was staying with us then. She gave this to me, said it would give me sonus."
"Good fortune," William interjected. "Happiness, passion."
Philip grinned.
"Well, in that case, you must wear it."
Adina held the brooch tightly.
"Your grandmother is still smiling at you,"
William said, pointing toward the ceiling.
"She always knew you would make it. Told me to have faith in you. She said no force on heaven or earth could stop you. She was right."
"Grandma was always so good to me," Adina responded. Her shoulders dropped. "And now I've let her down," she sighed.
"What do you mean, Belle?"
her mother asked, trying to console her.
"You're going to make her so proud tonight."
"She sent me the music because she wanted me to do something with it," Adina stammered, beginning to dissolve. "Something important. But I've failed her." William recalled his mother's dying words. "Adina needs to save us." He shivered, remembering her insistence on having the score couriered across the Atlantic the same day. "I'm letting Lang steal that music right in front of the whole world, in front of my own family," Adina moaned, starting to shake. "How could I have let this happen? Oh, my God!" Jackie wrapped her arms around her. "Adina, it's okay." Philip sat down across from William.
"I tried to expose Lang, but there is no record of that score anywhere. I know he took it from Adina, but he's made it his own now."
William nodded.
"There's no historical record, nothing to point to."
He looked at his daughter.
"But, Pumpkin, I did get some new information from Scotland. My friend Daniel, the guide at Drumming Castle."
Adina stared at him. "What?"
"He sent copies of more letters and even an old newspaper account. Seems like Catherine Carnegie caused quite a sensation."
"Really?"
"Yeah, glowing reports of enchanting performances, of the music and of her voice," he continued. "I have to think that if only that score had been published instead of being hidden away at Kinnaird for all those years, well, it would have found a place in the historical record." "Yeah."
Philip nodded.
"I think so."
"If I had the Duncan Cello, I could make things right," Adina said, anger rising in her voice. "Make that bastard pay for stealing our music." No one knew how to respond. Silence fell over the room. A ticking clock methodically recorded the passing seconds like the timer on a bomb about to explode. William hoisted Adina's worn leather cello case into the back of his Volvo station wagon.
"Are we all going in the same car?"
He closed the trunk and looked toward his wife standing near Adina and Philip in the brooding light of the parking garage of Adina's condo. "Oh, sacre!" Jackie cursed. "I got a run in my stocking." She reached down and touched her calf. "Is the Rideau Center still open?" William looked at his watch.
"I don't know, but Adina's got to be at the NAC,"
he said, focusing on his wrist.
"Now. They're on at 8.
"We're supposed to be there 90 minutes before," Adina confirmed in a small voice.
"Then you're going to be late, Pumpkin."
William turned to Jackie.
"You really need to go to the mall. Now."
Jackie gave him a strange look, silently mouthing, "Yes," and nodding, eyebrows raised. He had been married long enough to know this was not the time to argue. Jackie touched Philip's shoulder. "Maybe I can go with him, and you take Adina." "Sure," Philip agreed. "My car's right here." Tara was having a hard time completing the email to her boss. Andre had been so busy traveling and negotiating 3 new acquisitions, he had pretty much left things to her. Not that she minded. She felt that really she was in charge anyway. He was more like a ceremonial monarch, important perhaps, but not required to run the affairs of state. It was the model her parents gave her, a strong woman making day-to-day decisions and keeping all the gears running smoothly. It was in her DNA. But still, she needed to give her director a summary of what had transpired with the Duncan Cello, for the record. Okay, so when did this all start? She looked over at her desk calendar and saw the little note on today's date. D. Concert. "God," she said and whistled. "It's her big night." It should have been an evening to celebrate with her. Help Adina get ready. Support her in any way she could, even if it was only picking out the right shoes. They had been there for each other, for every milestone. Instead, she thought with a pang of guilt, I'm looking for a way to send her to jail. The fake Duncan Cello, locked away in the basement, was proof to some degree, but she had never actually caught Adina with the real instrument. Tara knew, though, that her troublesome best friend, maddening confidant, and let's face it, surrogate sibling, had done what she had always done. Act first, think later, get out of jail free, thanks to Big Sister Tara. No wonder Adina always beat her at Monopoly. Gotta write this email, she thought, trying to focus on what to say to Andre. As she clicked her mouse to start a new line, there was a tap on the door. "Tara?" It was Philip. He poked his head through the door. "Working late?" "Yes, I'm finishing up." She rose from her chair. "Come in." He stepped through the door wearing a classic tux, a slim black mohair jacket with narrow lapels and black tie. His high-shine derby shoes gave him a sleek finish. "I've got something for you," he said, embracing her and planting a kiss on each cheek, his musky cologne subtly teasing her. He held her a moment longer than usual. "Box seats," he smiled, presenting her with 2 tickets. "Show starts at 8. You busy, mademoiselle?" Jackie wasn't sure how this was going to work, but somehow she had to try. As she reached the security area of the gallery, using Adina's security fob that Philip had given her, she knew she had finally accepted there was something special about William's side of the family. Adina's stories might be impossible, but maybe, just maybe, not everything could be explained through science. Even as Jackie had delivered her PhD thesis debunking clairvoyance among autistic children, a shiver of doubt lingered. Now she could no longer explain what was happening to her daughter. And sometimes, she thought, a mother just has to do what a mother has to do. The door to the secure area was open, and she heard someone moaning. Curious, she knocked softly on the open door and proceeded inside slowly. She stopped dead in her tracks as she was confronted with the sight of 2 men a few feet in front of her. One had his pants down to his ankles, while the other was performing fellatio on him with reckless abandon. "I'm sorry," Jackie blurted out, averting her eyes. "Fuck!" the man on the receiving end shouted, pushing the other man off him. "Who are you?" He quickly pulled his pants up as his partner scurried behind the desk. "I'm Jackie, Adina Stewart's mother." The startled man looked pale and trembled as he spoke. "What do you want with me?" "Are you Michael?" Jackie inquired, still flushed from the scene she just witnessed. "Yes," he warbled. "I'm sorry you had to see that." Jackie smiled. Not something she witnessed every day, admittedly, but somehow, rather than embarrassing her, it filled her with confidence for the request she was about to make. "That's okay, it doesn't bother me. I'm only here to try and help Adina." There was a long moment of silence. "How?" "I need the Duncan Cello." The other man, who she had just seen on his knees in a rather uncompromising position with his mouth full of his friend's penis, now popped up behind the desk. He looked worried as he stared first at Jackie and then at Michael, who seemed to be considering her request. "Pablo," Michael challenged his partner with a measured tone, "we need to help her." Tara contemplated Philip's offer. "I'd love to, but I'm not sure if I can go to the NAC without having her arrested."
"Arrested? Why?"
Philip repeated, stepping back a bit but remaining close enough that his cologne was still having its way with her. "You're not aware that she likes to steal precious artifacts?" Tara asked.
"Are you sure about that?"
Tara hesitated. So far, all she had were Lang's comments and an imposter cello locked up downstairs. "No, but I know what she's done, and I know what she's capable of." She was having a hard time making a convincing case. Philip's brown eyes were too inviting, his face too sturdy and inviting. The room suddenly felt warm. She flushed, staring at him.
"She's not perfect,"
he agreed.
"but she's not a criminal."
"Sorry, you're wrong. I saved her ass so many times. But if she took the Duncan, and I know she did, then even I can't help her this time." Philip seemed to be thinking it over.
"Whatever she may have done, and you have no real proof of anything," he said, closing the distance between them, "she's still your friend. You two are like family. You even fight like sisters."
"I know, and it's killing me," Tara replied. "I want so much to help her, but I can't let this one go. It's not some teenage prank. She could go to jail for a long time." Suddenly, the thought of it was too much for her. She had a vision of Adina in a prison cell, her career and her life ruined, all thanks to Sister Tara. She felt tears rising to the surface. She struggled to keep them from overflowing. The warring conflicts in her head fought for supremacy. The tears won out and rolled down her cheeks. Philip put his arms around her.
"It's okay, Tara."
He held her close.
"It's okay."
She started sobbing, but the comfort he was bringing her was something she had rarely, if ever, felt before, and she didn't want to let it go. Adina sat nervously on the stage of Southam Hall. The cavernous theatre was almost full, with only a few of the 2,300 red velvet seats still empty. Yet people kept coming in, all dressed up in high style, hundreds of diamonds twinkling from the necks and wrists of ladies throughout the hall. It was a sellout for the opening of the new season. The character of the room was changing before her eyes as the audience transformed the empty space into a living thing that craved musical solace. Her grandmother would have enjoyed this, but she would have been so disappointed that her granddaughter had let Catherine's music slip away without a fight. Adina looked over the printed scores on every musician's stand. That was her composition they were about to perform, giving glory to the thief who stole it. All she had left were the lyrics in her head, words that made the music soar even higher. "Belle!" someone suddenly whispered. She looked around. "Belle!" This time the voice was louder. Adina glanced to her left. There behind the curtain was her mother. Philip could feel Tara trembling in his arms. He had done his job of distracting her almost too well, and now he was feeling something unexpected, an electricity running between them that both excited and scared him. The tighter she held him, the more he felt the powerful rush. Their bodies fit together perfectly, and he was fighting a passion sweeping over him that seemed more than simple lust. He felt physically aroused and emotionally drawn towards the woman he was embracing. He had known Tara longer than Adina, but he had never considered her in a romantic fashion, maybe because she was so quick to introduce him to her best friend. Or had there been little clues all along that Tara had been sending him? Had he missed the obvious all this time? Philip could feel her breasts pushing against him, and her thighs pressing dangerously close. It was beginning to stimulate him, adding to his confusion. Tara's dark perfume was so tantalizing. He had to stop, not get carried away. Was she feeling anything, or was he only imagining all of this? This can't be happening, Tara thought. She had to let Philip go. He had started by comforting her, But this had become something more, at least for her. Her heart was racing. The tighter she held him, the more he responded, drawing her even closer. How could she let her feelings get the best of her? She couldn't do this to Dee. It went against everything she believed in. She lifted her head from Philip's shoulder, and they caught each other's eyes. What was he thinking? His mouth was parted slightly, his eyes open wide, inviting her to enter another world. Tara raised her arms and placed her hand behind his neck, gently pulling his face closer. She felt any sense of control slipping away. She had to feel his mouth on hers. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Tara turned to see a uniformed security guard standing before her.
"The Duncan Cello is gone!"